last few years, we've heard the term free agents and been told we would all need to become one in order to succeed. The recent economic structures have helped to promote this concept as reality. Where do we get the tools to take control of our career path in the present and future? Welcome to the Career Confidante with your host, Marie Zimenoff. Marie and her guest experts are here to provide you with the tools you need to move forward and achieve your career goals. Now, here is Marie Zimenoff.
Hello and welcome to the Career Confidante. We're excited to have you here today because you get to listen in to conversation with Gregg Levoy, author of Vital Signs, The Nature and Nurture of Passion, and Callings, Finding and Following an Authentic Life. So Gregg has been a behavioral specialist and now he's a speaker, goes around and does training. I've been sitting in his training before and so incredibly powerful, Gregg. I'm so excited that you're joining us. Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, now some people may have heard the word calling in a couple of different settings. So tell me a little bit about what calling means to you.
Yeah. Well, to me, I kind of approach it very secularly and very sort of pluralistically, meaning these are the urgings and the promptings and the signs and the signals, sometimes even the imperatives that come from deep inside our lives that tell us what it's going to take to, in a sense, make our own lives literally come true. And I say pluralistically because most people think of a calling as vocational, but it's broader than that. There are relationship calls. There are lifestyle calls, there are moral calls and service calls, and the ones you got when you were 20, assuming you got them, really different than the ones you're going to get at 50 and at 75. So there's a developmental aspect to it, but really it's these are just the signs and the signals that are constantly sort of blipping across our radar screens that tell us what we need to do, what kind of decisions we need to make to stay true to true north.
Do you have an example maybe from your own life or a client that you've been working with?
Of following a calling?
Yeah, or getting or feeling that calling?
Oh my goodness, yes. Well, there was a period of time when I was a reporter for the Cincinnati Enquirer. And I'd been there for about a decade. And I started to hear, in a sense, calls to move on, to become self-employed as a writer. And frankly, I ignored them for 3 or 4 years. And this is standard operating procedure. Joseph Campbell, who a lot of people probably know from The Hero's Journey, said that phase 1 of responding to a call is running from it. And
I like that.
It's universal. And so whatever resistance is being flushed up by starting to hear a call, it's normal. And I really think it's important to normalize it so people don't feel like they're being cowardly when really they're just, in a sense, following that part of the hero's journey is resistance. And so over the course of the next 3 or 4 years, I got more and more of these impressions from inside of me saying, you need to move on. You need to write more nationally. You need to move out of Cincinnati, Ohio. Yeah. And so eventually I just couldn't avoid the call anymore. It was coming at me from so many different directions. And that's an important piece, I think, is because a lot of people, they just kind of focus on the great big calling, like the vocational burning bush or something. And they miss all the little calls that are right at their feet. And that's what I was starting to pay attention to, is all the different channels through which calls come to us. So through dreams and through intuitions and through song lyrics I couldn't get out of my head for weeks that said something about my process. So there's something about opening up a lot of different receivers and starting to hear the calls.
Which, I mean, that is that's the challenge. If we're going to have the resistance at first, how do people make themselves more receptive? Or I don't know if this comes in here too, but maybe also being able to differentiate the call from fear, because you said at first you feel afraid and you got that, but sometimes fear is really telling us not to do something, right? So how do we determine when we're hesitant to heed a call, or when we're afraid for a good reason it may not be the best choice?
Yes, absolutely. And that's why the kind of discernment work that's part of a calling is really stringy work. It's really hard sometimes to figure out, am I being called? Is it coming from soul, or for some people, God? Or is it coming from ego and wishful thinking and the desire for financial security? So you kind of have to spend a little time teasing those things out. And, because I'm a writer, I journal about these things. So I have an ongoing conversation with myself. And that, to me, is one of the really important pieces of discerning calls and acting on them. And as you said, separating out, say, fear from calling. And that is, you've got to have some kind of a self-reflective practice, whether it's journaling or dream interpretation, or you belong to some kind of a group that helps you do discernment work, women's groups or men's groups or mastermind groups or personal boards of advisors, but some way. And everybody that I interviewed for the Callings book told me they had a practice like this that was just about being in conversation with themselves on a regular basis. And I think that's a really important piece. Yeah,
that is what's so powerful, right? And we know that a lot of people teach meditation or mindfulness,
right.
And I like the way you're describing it, because it opens it up to any type of practice that
right.
would keep those together for you.
Right, absolutely. For some people, it's regular intimate conversation with certain people. For some people, it's therapy is a self-reflective practice, or counseling or coaching. But there's something that you really got to turn that receiver on and then be willing to hear what you hear, which is an acquired taste sometimes.
Yes. And as you said, when you were hearing this, it was not just professional, it was also personal in terms of your move. And do you find that a lot of times those things come together in terms of maybe a personal and a professional change that needs to be made?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, sometimes when I'm teaching some of the callings workshops, people come anticipating that they're going to be working on a vocational issue for themselves. And then they end up, say, working on a health issue or a relationship issue or something of that nature. But I think they all fall under the heading of, what kind of decisions do you need to make at this juncture of your life that will bring you the kind of aliveness that you're after, the kind of a sense of integrity in a psychological sense, not a moral sense, as in being in integrity with yourself, that's going to bring you a life of some purpose and some passion. So all kinds of things fall under that. They could be health decisions. They could be relationship or geographical decisions or service decisions that you want to make. How can I contribute to the world? What are my gifts? So really, they all kind of fall under the heading of a deep sense of integrity and, what the Buddhists call right relationship with yourself.
Yeah. And that's not a quick thing. Right? I mean, that takes time, whether it's developing a mindfulness practice or any of these other things that you're talking about. They are work in and of themselves.
Right.
And then we have to continue on to the work of identifying what that voice is that we may have been hearing.
And identifying, how should I put this? Part of cultivating passion, if we can use that word in this context, is identifying where you lose it. So I sat down years ago and I pulled out a piece of paper and I made a list of activities and involvements in my life at that time that were draining my energies and my integrity out of my life rather than replenishing them. And it included things like socializing out of guilt or driving in rush hour traffic when I didn't need to be, or watching television, or even doing my own taxes rather than farming that out. So there was just a whole list of things that I was engaged in that were draining me. And I think it's important to identify those alongside what is calling to me. Where is my spark? Where is my life force? Because it's important to identify what, in a sense, is demeaning, literally de-meaning, lacking in a sense of meaning and purpose and energy for you. And sometimes it's kind of sobering to make a list like that and realize, wow, I'm losing energy when I'm doing these activities. I'm not in a flow state. I'm not engaged. And then I read something like the Gallup survey that came out about 10 years ago that showed that 87% of workers around the world, there was 142 countries that they surveyed, 87% of people are not engaged. And that's kind of a horrific statistic.
Right. Yeah.
And a lot of people, I think it was 13%, are actively disengaged in their work. And I recognize that because I spent a couple of years doing that when I worked at the newspaper, is constant clock watching, extra long lunches, sick days I came back from with a tan, actively disengaged. And it's important to identify that.
Yeah. And that's one of those signs that maybe there's something else going on. Yeah. And that we could take some self-reflection time to figure that out. Right. You mentioned passion, and you're going to talk about this a little bit more at your presentation at the Symposium. But tell me a little bit about what you see as the role of passion in people's work specifically.
Yeah. It's about engagement, I think, a lot of it. And it's also about, it's the hunger for growth is kind of the way I see it. And when I'm at a job where I'm doing some of those activities I just mentioned, coming into work late, leaving work early, all those kind of things where it's so clear that I'm not enjoying my work anymore and I'm not engaged in it. And sometimes I'm even actively working against it. I think it's important, and this is maybe one of the roles of passion, is to help you identify where you're engaged and where you're not, and where you have passion and where you don't. And it's really just, where does your vitality show up for your work? Where does it need to start showing up? I ran across, have you ever heard of this concept called 20% time? This is fascinating to me. There are companies soon, and I live now on the flanks of Silicon Valley. And so these are companies like Google and 3M and Hewlett Packard and Oracle and literally 100 others that offer their employees one day out of the week, so 20% of their work week, to any kind of a passion project they want, as long as it kind of ultimately serves the bottom line and the purpose of the company. Mm-hmm. So one day out of your work week is devoted to a passion project. So one of the things I want to ask people is, if you were granted 20% time, what would you want to sink your teeth into? What are you excited to learn about next? What would you love to try out as a passion project? And just to help people start to identify where their energy actually is for their work, or where it's not, where it's disappeared on them and something new needs to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's such a powerful question. We are going to take a break on that question. Where would we spend our 20% time? Mm-hmm. And if you can't think of something related to your current work, maybe that's a hint in and of itself. But of course, even outside of that current workspace, where would we spend that 20% time? We're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about how we tell about this true calling and maybe identify it. And we might talk a little bit more about passion and work as well. Gregg Levoy is speaking at our symposium in March 26th through 29th in San Diego, California. If you are listening to this before then, get your ticket, get on the plane and come and join us. Whether you're a coach or a resume writer, career professional in some way, leadership coach, career coach, you are going to get so much out of this event. We'll take a short break and we'll be right back with Gregg in just a few minutes.
Become our friend on Facebook. Post your thoughts about our shows and network on our timeline. Visit facebook.com/Voice America.
You know that the career landscape has changed and that you need to be proactive about managing your career. You can have the foresight, skills, and confidence you need to take charge of your career and seize opportunities. A strategic advantage and career expert, Marie Zimenoff has helped thousands of leaders like you get focused, get found, and get hired. Visit getcareersmart.com to find out more. That's getcareersmart.com or call 800-521-2080 to schedule your complimentary consultation.
Do you need directions to solid financial future? If so, the Money Answers Show with Jordan Goodman will provide you with a roadmap to making smart money decisions in every area of your personal finances. Join Jordan every Monday at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 3 p.m. Eastern for the Money Answers Show on the Voice America Business Channel. Learn how and where to get the best deals on mortgages, cars, and insurance. Find out the best ways to save for college and retirement. Get out of debt, improve your credit rating, and save on your taxes. The Money Answers Show with Jordan Goodman will provide you with great tips on investment opportunities in real estate, stocks, annuities, and other investment vehicles. That's the Money Answers Show with Jordan Goodman on the Voice America Business Channel every Monday at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time.
Connect with us, and we'll connect with you. The Voice America Talk Radio Network is on LinkedIn. Get the first word about happenings with the network, where our next live event will be, and what's up with our hosts. Look up Voice America on LinkedIn.
When it comes to business, you'll find the experts here. Voice America Business Network.
You are tuned in to the Career Confidant with Marie Zimenoff. If you have a question or comment for Marie or her guest today, please call 1-866-472-5790. That's 1-866-472-5790. You may also send an email to marie@strategicadvantage.com. Now, back to the Career Confidant.
Hello and welcome back to the Career Confidante. And today we're talking with Gregg Levoy, author of Vital Signs and Callings and speaker at the upcoming Career Thought Leaders Symposium. And Gregg, we've been talking a little bit about callings and what that means and how someone can identify that. We talked a little bit about that self-reflection to identify whether this is a true calling or not. What else would you say for people to identify whether it's a true call or a false one?
Yeah, there's a question I ask pretty much everybody that I've ever interviewed about their sense of calling in their work is, how'd you tell that it was a true call as opposed to, siren song? And the responses have been so consistent over the years about how people figure that out that, I can literally list it for you. People have said to me that they know a call feels true when, for one thing, it keeps coming back month after month, maybe year after year. And for some people who are expert at avoiding their calls, decade after decade. And the beauty and the curse, by the way, of calls is that the search party will not retire. The calls will keep trying to come through until the last possible moment. So people also said they knew a call was true when it came at them from a lot of different directions, not just an idea you got in your head one afternoon or a career you pick out of an occupational handbook or something. It's coming at you through your intuitions, your passions, your gifts, your dreams, what your body is telling you. So there's a clustering effect, in other words, and you got to just connect the dots. People said they knew a call felt true when it was in line with their deepest sense of values. And if you want to get a bead on that, I encourage you to consider a book called The Path by a woman named Lori Beth Jones. Little tiny format book you can read in an afternoon. And it's a book about how you craft a mission statement for yourself and your work and your life. It's a very elegant piece of work. So just a way to kind of get a bead on your those deep values and why you believe you're here. People said they knew a call was true and it scared them. I was amazed by how many people said something along those lines. I remember one guy said, I don't know, I feel if a path feels really kind of safe and easy, it's suspect. But if it scares me, it tells me that I'm close to something vital. And that was interesting. And everybody said some version of, you have to be willing to try them out, these calls. You have to be willing to go down the path a little ways, even if you're not sure it's the path, and just kind of take field notes. And this is one of the best ways to discern whether the call's true or not, is take a step toward it. Meaning, do an informational interview with somebody who's doing something you're thinking you want to do, or buy a book, or attend a conference, or interpret a dream, or attend a lecture, and then look at the feedback you get from your own life from taking that step, rather than, okay, I'm going to take a year and I'm going to work toward it and then I'm going to assess. No, I think small steps and looking at the feedback you get from your own life, you feel better or worse after taking that step. Do you feel more alive or more asleep? What do your dreams tell you? What do your body tells you? So that's just something that's been important for me to do.
Well, and I like that. And I like the caveats that you just gave to that, because sometimes when we take that step, we'll get resistance in some places, maybe from the people around us, or and so you might get resistance in some places. But what you just said is, how does it make you feel? Like, what does it do to your energy? What does it do to, and so those are really important distinctions to me, because when you take that step, you may get some resistance, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's not the right step.
That's exactly right. And, another thing is, in a sense, your career, your vocation belongs to you. You're the one who's called, but you're not the only one who's going to be affected by how you choose to respond to it. And in a very real sense, I've had to learn this the hard way. My callings are community property, in the sense that if you have a partner, your vocational choices are going to affect that person. If you're part of let's say a women's group in Denver, and you get a call to move to the Bay Area, that's going to affect that community. If you own a company and you want to get out, that's going to affect your employees. So I just say this in honoring that some of the resistance you may feel won't be your own. Somebody else, if you want to retire, how's that going to affect your marriage or your partnership? So that's why I say calls are community property, and I think it just helps to acknowledge that.
Yes. Yeah. And that there may be more complexities, but that doesn't mean the calling still isn't there and still has its consequences if we don't go for it, right? So let's talk a little bit about some of the biggest fears you've seen people face when they do feel this calling.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, well, almost seems like by design, callings are meant to rock the boat because they call you away from what's familiar. That's kind of their nature, is they call you into a deeper sense of integrity with yourself. And that may question how you live right now, what you're doing with your life, the choices and the priorities that you have. And that's scary. That's scary stuff. I think the call I had to be self-employed as a writer, in other words, a freelancer, meant I was going to give up a regular paycheck. I was going to give up the community of an office for being a freelance writer. I was going to give up medical benefits. I mean, never mind that the only reason I was using the medical benefits was that my job was making me sick. So there are things about the call to be self-employed that were anxiety producing. And that's just part of what we have to ride out and do some self-talk around and not just push off to the side. And people are simply afraid of the changes that a calling is going to require of them. And so most people, my observation is they will choose security over passion. It's one of the primary dynamics in people's relationship to their calls is the struggle between those two things. And most people will opt for security over passion, but passion won't be denied. Your true self, if I can use that terminology, won't be denied. You can push it down, but the human psyche is like the earth. It's a closed system, meaning there's no away, as in running away from these things. There's no trash icon in there, and whatever you push down is going to come up someplace else in the system. Just because it's systems theory and everything's hitched to everything else. And I don't mean that to scare people. I just mean it to kind of doff my cap to the way it really is, that you can't push down passion and integrity and authenticity with impunity.
Yeah, and that it shows up in different ways for different people, which I think is really important. And as you said, kind of at different times. Well, let's really quickly talk to me a little bit about what strategies people employ to avoid their calling.
Yeah. Anybody who's ever been told you think too much is going to recognize that one of the strategies a lot of people use is studying their calling to death. I've done it myself. There's always one more expert to consult and one more book to read and one more class to take and, one more year till I'm really ready. That can be a really common strategy because it looks like you're busy and you're being productive, but it may be distraction, right? Let's see. People wait for the perfect moment to act. You've got the right amount of money in the bank and time and I don't know, that herbal program has finally kicked in and your chakras are aligned or whatever, and this can be a kind of just avoidance and procrastination is waiting for the perfect moment. In fact, I heard a speaker named Rosita Perez say that for most people, the refrain goes like this. It's 1 for the money, 2 for the show, 3 to get ready, 3 to get ready, 3 to get ready. So there's something to that. And one more quick one. Some people pick a path in their life that's parallel to the one that they actually feel called toward. So close enough to keep an eye on it, not so close you're going to jump tracks. So you become, let's say, art critic rather than an artist, or a talent agent rather than a performer, or a writer, an editor rather than a writer, school teacher rather than a parent. So some people pick a path that's parallel to the one they really want to be on. And everybody's got their own brand of self-sabotage. One of my favorites, fortunately, used to be blurting out my newfound enthusiasm about something to my most cynical family member. You might as well just disembowel yourself on the spot.
Well, and I love that you just brought that up because Benice Johnson, she came on my live stream. So if you're not joining us at the Symposium, you can still catch her video on our YouTube channel. Right now it's on the live tab, but shortly there'll be a shorter version of it on the live tab, on the regular tab, because she talked about this self-sabotage. And it's such an important piece for us to understand when we're doing that. And it kind of circles back to the very beginning when you talked about having that self-reflection practice, because that's how one of the ways that we can suss this out, right?
Absolutely.
to really pay attention to what we're doing. Well, this is so fun, Greg. And Greg's going to spend 4 hours with us in San Diego, going to go really deep into some of this content. I'm so excited. If you can't join us in San Diego, run out and get the books, Vital Signs. I've actually got that one sitting here on my desk from years ago, and Callings, so that you can get some of the interest or the good stuff out of there for your own career, or if you're a career professional, for the work that you do with others. Thank you so much, Greg. I really love listening to your stories, and thank you for sharing these concepts with us and with my audience.
Wonderful. My pleasure. And I look forward to seeing you later this month at the conference.
Yes. And we are going to come right back here on the Career Confidante. I'm going to share a little bit more about the 3 levels of love and how that relates to work. So don't go anywhere. We're saying goodbye to Greg, but I'll be right back here on the Career Confidante.
Follow us on Twitter at VoiceAmericaTRN. Get the lowdown on guests, new shows, and your favorites. That's VoiceAmericaTRN.
You know that the career landscape has changed and that you need to be proactive about managing your career. You can have the foresight, skills, and confidence you need to take charge of your career and seize opportunities. A strategic advantage and career expert, Marie Zimenoff has helped thousands of leaders like you get focused, get found, and get hired. Visit getcareersmart.com to find out more. That's getcareersmart.com, or call 800-521-2080 to schedule your complimentary consultation.
Have you become a member yet? Sign up now to become a member of Voice America. It's always free and easy. Plus, you get to take advantage of some great member benefits. Get unlimited access to millions of hours of on-demand content across all of our channels. Keep track of your favorite episodes, shows, and hosts in your own customizable library. Find out what shows you might be interested in based on your favorites. Plus, you get insider access with our newsletter. Membership gives you more. Sign up at voiceamerica.com and click register at the top right.
When it comes to business, you'll find the experts here. Voice America Business Network.
You are tuned in to the Career Confidante with Marie Zimenoff. If you have a question or comment for Marie or her guest today, please call 1-866-472-5790. That's 1-866-472-5790. You may also send an email to marie@strategicadvantage.com. Now, back to the Career Confidante.
Welcome back to the Career Confidante. And Gregg Levoy was just on talking about his ideas around callings and vital signs, how we need to uncover the authentic reasons that we work, how we can respond to what we feel like is a calling in our life or in our work, and how we can work and kind of uncover that passion at work. Now, I started talking about purpose and passion in work years and years ago. In fact, when I first joined Twitter, I got the handle Work with Purpose. And I've always felt a little bit differently, especially about purpose in work. And this kind of goes to what Greg was talking about, because when we know where we're headed and we kind of have an idea of what our foundation is, who we are, what we like to do, where we're going, then we can show up to whatever work we're doing in purpose, on purpose. Because even if I'm not enjoying my job today, if I know where I'm going, I can figure out how does what I'm doing today get me where I want to go eventually. And I started out in the university setting. And my first job in the university setting was scanning articles so that they could be sent to people around the world who requested them from the Colorado State University Library. And, you might think, oh, kind of a boring job, right? But I was obviously new to campus. I was a freshman just getting started. And so I worked that job with purpose. And my purpose was that I was going to learn where things were in the library, right? I was getting this intimate view to where everything was in the library. Now, I knew a little bit, at least, of my foundation, my heart, my roots, were research. I love to research. And if you follow my newsletters, and it's been a while since I did one on LinkedIn, but you know that I write about data, and I write about kind of picking that data apart and seeing what it really is all about and what it's saying. And that has been a part of my core since I was driving my mom nuts when I was little tiny, right? So that piece of it, I could grab onto. Yeah, it was this boring job. You were sitting there scanning articles, but I knew quickly how to get to any part of the library and find what I need. And that served me. I only worked that job maybe a year, but that served me throughout my university work. Because when I wanted to research something, and I, did my honors thesis, and I did all the researchy, nerdy work, that I knew where things were in the library. I was one of the few people in some of my classes who'd been to the basement in the library where all the archives were, and I knew how to find things. And it was one of those jobs that could have been a throwaway job. I could have hated it. But instead, by luck at that point, because I was a freshman, I really didn't know what I was doing, but I connected what I could get out of the job with where I saw myself going in the future and what I knew about my core, my roots. And when we do that, that helps us show up better at work, which is going to make us more successful. It's going to make us have better connections with the people around us. And it also helps us feel like we're showing up on purpose. We're showing up with me. And you bring that meaning to your work. If you're going to work looking for someone else to give you meaning, or looking for what you do to give you meaning, in almost every job, you're going to be disappointed. I think part of this journey towards calling is also figuring out that you have the agency to bring that to almost anything you do. And if you look within, while you're headed towards whatever it might be that calling is, that you're also bringing it with you. So this comes along together with how I feel about passion at work. So sitting in a Catholic wedding, oh man, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago now, and the priest at my friend's wedding started talking about the 3 types of love: eros, agape, and philos. And this is a true careers nerd sitting at a wedding, hearing the priest talk about these 3 levels of love. And immediately I thought about how they apply to our careers. So and then in the Western world, they use Western words. And so I'll try to kind of mix those in here so that we can carry them through. But so I'm going to talk about eros being kind of the lust, right? Eros is that lusty kind of love. And it's the kind of love that we enjoy. It brings the little tingly feelings, right? Butterflies in your stomach, whatever it might be that you think of when you think about new love, or that kind of falling in love type of way we talk about love. Infatuation, right? And it talks about how the Greeks saw it as a dangerous because you lose control. It's also dangerous because we fall out of that type of love. And when people are talking about passion for their work, I often hear a little bit of this in what they're talking about, that they want to love waking up and going to work every morning, that they want to jump out of bed and go to work every morning. And y'all, that is lust. And we need to have it at some point for our job. But if that's the only way we love our job, it's not going to last no matter what the job is. My husband was telling me about a story that he read recently about someone who'd been a lawyer, and they left their lawyer job, and now they had this article or something out there about them, about how they loved this new independent work that they were doing. And I said, well, I'd love to hear what that person says in 6 months, because you are in the honeymoon period still. You're still in lust with that job, with the infatuation of independent work and flexibility and all of the things that we talk about. But those things wear off eventually. I've worked for myself. I've been a I've been an independent person here for 15 years, and I can tell you that those things wear off. And if you're not in love with the type of work you're doing, that lust doesn't last. So that's eros. Then you've got philos, and that's that brotherly love. That's the camaraderie. That's the friendship. And so when we have that kind of love for work, that may actually be friends at work. It may be that we have that back and forth of love for work, that we aren't in the throes of blind lust, but we're there, we have loyalty, maybe we have that appreciation, we sacrifice a little bit, but we understand that it's not going to be that rush every morning, right? That we've got that connection in a little bit different way. And sometimes, of course, that this blossoms out of that lust. If you think about a long-term marriage or whatever that may be, some kind of partnership, but there's also a part of it that's different. It's different than that lust. It's, I don't want to say more evolved, right? But it can evolve out of it, but it's just a different approach, typically a little longer term, maybe sometimes a little bit more arm's length when you think about your relationship with a friend versus a spouse or, someone that you fell in love with first before you moved into that type of love. It can be different, but it isn't as fiery, but it also has a little bit longer tail, if you will, a little slower burn. Now, agape is that kind of unconditional love. And I've been talking and learning a lot about unconditional love, especially for self, in the last 6 months, doing some work with Shirzad Sharmin and positive intelligence. And this is a hard one to grasp at, even towards ourselves. But there's this idea that we have that charity or altruism or that we show up in that selfless way. And I don't know that this type of love necessarily applies as much to work. But what I do see when we look at these different types of work is that, and I think about it more in terms of philos, or maybe as it kind of applies to agape, that when you are in this type of love, it is a choice that you make every day. It's not all roses. And, when we look at a long-term partnership, long-term marriage, spouse, it isn't that there aren't things that are wrong, but that you're committed enough to it to stick it through. Now, we've got to move through our work life and figure out what is that passion that has sticking power. And what I love about some of the work in this area and some of the research in this area is that it's not one or the other. It doesn't have to be that we find our passion and then go get work in that area. Sometimes that doesn't work out for people, actually. Or that we work at something and we develop a passion. That's possible too. But that different people find it different ways. And isn't that just the same thing with love? Romantic, human, friend-to-friend type of love. We all do it differently. So we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, talk a little bit more about how you can find your passion and purpose at work if you want to feel more fulfilled in the work that you're doing. We'll take a short break, and we'll be right back.
You know that the career landscape has changed and that you need to be proactive about managing your career. You can have the foresight, skills, and confidence you need to take charge of your career and seize opportunities. A strategic advantage and career expert, Marie Zimenoff has helped thousands of leaders like you get focused, get found, and get hired. Visit getcareersmart.com to find out more. That's getcareersmart.com or call 800-521-2080 to schedule your complimentary consultation.
Are you a business owner, 1099 contractor, part-time employee, or volunteer who needs group health coverage you can actually afford? Do you know a nonprofit who would benefit from unlimited zero-cost funding? How about cost reduction, school safety, mental health wellness, and more? All these and more are fair game on Finding Certainty. If you want more certainty in your own life, you are not alone. Join us each Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern on the Voice America Business Channel. Find your own brand of certainty and realize your personal American dream with Finding Certainty, hosted by Patrick Lang. Let's unwrap the certainty experience together.
Defeat the Chaos with Corey Harris and Julie Traxler hits on topics every week that affect small business owners across this country. They provide insights that show entrepreneurs how to reduce stress, wear fewer hats, and work shorter hours. Take your business from being owner-dependent and stagnant to growth-ready and process-driven every Thursday at 9 a.m. Eastern on the Voice America Business Channel.
Voice America Business Network, the bottom line in business.
You are tuned in to the Career Confidante with Marie Zimenoff. If you have a question or comment for Marie or her guest today, please call 1-866-472-5790. That's 1-866-472-5790. You may also send an email to marie@strategicadvantage.com. Now, back to the Career Confidante.
Welcome back to the Career Confidante. And today we've been talking about purpose and passion. And earlier with Gregg Levoy, we were talking about that callings in our work. And these ideas all kind of flow together. Now, he talked a little bit about how callings is not just the professional part, right? There's that deeper life piece that goes into it. And that is true for each of these concepts. And oftentimes, the challenge can be figuring out, where are you off? What is missing? What's the gap? And when we're talking about purpose and passion, this is really important, because not all passions are going to be fulfilled at work. And not all types of purpose are going to be fulfilled at work. So the work around purpose talks about how there are 3 different levels or types of purpose. That we have our own personal growth, personal fulfillment. We have our interpersonal relationships, so those one-to-one kind of family or friends relationships, and then our purpose in society and how we connect to that bigger society piece. And I know we've talked about that purpose in this program before. It's so important to recognize where does the purpose feel off, and that we may not get purpose in all 3 areas all the time. And so if we're feeling off in our purpose at work, connecting to the purpose interpersonally or with the larger society may actually also help us figure out what's off in that purpose at work. Where could I reconnect with that? And from my perspective, again, that purpose is something that you figure out, you bring to work based on understanding where you're going, how you want to fit in the bigger picture in your life. And that may be this calling piece that Gregg is talking about. You may be feeling that calling. It doesn't necessarily mean you got to shut down what you're doing right now to go chase it. It may mean that you can start taking those toes in the water where you are right now, finding that purpose of where you are right now, and how does it connect to where you're going in your calling. Because typically there is some connection, there's some opportunity to connect those dots and not have to make a huge, chasm for yourself to cross over and follow that calling. Then the next piece is this idea of passion, and that passion at work doesn't fulfill all of your passions. And this may seem obvious, but I think that sometimes we lose track of that. So when I was first becoming a career professional and I took some of the assessments for career services that we give our clients, especially at the university settings, And it identified that sports was one of my main passions. I mean, I love sports, love to watch sports, love to watch athletes be athletic. To me, it's kind of this embodiment of talent, right? When you see it, especially on the basketball court. Basketball is one of my favorite sports to watch. And although I really got into the World Cup soccer and finally started to see some of that there, I'd always gotten a little lost in the game. But when we think about that passion, you have to be careful that that is not the work I wanted to do for my life. I knew I'd been enough, I'd gotten close enough to know that although I was really passionate about sports, it didn't allow me to do the things that I'm really passionate about in terms of developing others and teaching and coaching. And there's an opportunity there, but for me, from the path that I'd come up into, which was I have no collegiate athletic experience, right? That the level that I would want to be at, the type of work that I would want to do in that field those doors would not be open to me. And I knew that I had enough experience there to know that. And took some steps, as Gregg was saying, take some steps towards that calling and see, is that it? And for me, it was no, that's over here. That passion's over here, kind of on the side. But the big passion is this developing others piece. And as I started to take steps in a different direction to develop that piece, that's when I got all the feels. And actually the embodiment, there's two times that I can really feel that embodiment. One was when I went with my mentor to my first career fair. And I'm an introverted person, and she had pretty much only seen that introverted side. And boy, when we got into that job fair and I was sitting at the table with people that needed help with their resume or were looking for work, and I was talking to them, I lit up. And we were in the car on the way home from that first job fair. And she said, Marie, what was that? I totally did not expect that. You lit up when we were there. And that was one of those feelings, and knowing that I was moving towards that more true passion for work, even though sports will always be a passion outside. The second was at my first real booth for Career Thought Leaders and Resume Writing Academy at the National Career Development Association conference in 2015. In 2015 in Denver, Colorado, actually, ironically. People were coming to my table. They were talking about our programs. They were talking about how our programs had done so much for them and their work created by my predecessors. I had only been in the job for a year at that point. And that same kind of out of body of feeling of, I can't believe that this is what I get to do now, right? That this is my job. Solidifying at that point, which was really good because I just spent a house payment or the amount of a house on this business, but solidifying that this was the right place to enact that passion. And this is important for us to all realize, that the passion has many different ways that you can enact it. And it's finding that combination of places that use your skills, your training, the pieces that are already a part of you. I was talking to Melanie Denny, she runs Empowered Presence, and we were talking about this, that you can't leave those pieces behind. So you're looking for a way to enact your passion, that you can bring those with you, that they can support you, that you can maintain that foundation, that trunk of who you are, but find a new branch where maybe the leaves can grow faster and the flowers can bloom brighter. That's what you're looking for. And it's an opportunity to connect those purposes and those passions. But if you're looking for the eros, the lust, you'll often be disappointed. It's got to go deeper. You've got to find that deeper connection to who you are and what you want to do. We have another opportunity coming up to help people do this, to help them create a process to help clients do that. And that's our Certified Digital Brand Strategist class, where we give you the tools to uncover some of that trunk and that brain, those roots. And then how do you help someone connect those pieces through their digital brand so that they can become known for that and make that transition in their work and in their brand. So if you're interested in that, you can go to careerthoughtleaders.com, look under our certifications program, and you'll find the digital branding strategist. We'll be right back here again next week, and we'll look forward to hearing your thoughts. If you have any questions or topics you'd like me to cover, you can always reach out to me at Marie, M-A-R-I-E, at careerthoughtleaders.com. We'll see you right back here again next week on the Career Confidant.
Thank you for listening to the Career Confidant. Marie Zimenoff will return again with another terrific guest next Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 11 a.m. Pacific on the Voice America Business Channel. Be sure to join us then.